everyone. Time to talk about Dobbs. Dobbs is a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. So it was handed down officially a few days ago. Unofficially, we knew about it, I think, for about 2 months. So I want to make several points regarding this decision, regarding the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So number one, the media, the elites, the progressives, they act shocked. How could you do this? Could never see this coming. It's radical. It's extremist. This is totally not true. There's no shock in this at all. In fact, the only shock is, using shock here as a with some exaggeration, okay? Because it's not, nothing is a shock. But the only surprise is that it wasn't overturned earlier, because the original decision, Roe v. Wade, never stood on any reasonable ground. So, just briefly, the Roe v. Wade interpreted a clause in as there's a constitutional amendment. I forgot. I don't know which number it is, but whatever it was enacted right after the Civil War, which gave black people, former slaves, rights. So this was perfectly reasonable, morally and legally and everything. These are humans and citizens just like us, and they should have the same rights as other citizens have. And that's what the constitutional amendment says, that they are to enjoy the same liberty and due process and all of that that other citizens enjoy. So this constitutional amendment was never alluded to at all abortion. Abortion didn't come up. It wasn't an issue at all. It wasn't a controversy at the time. It wasn't talking about anything but black people, former slaves, to give them the franchise. To give them, the right, to give them the same liberty and other rights that other Americans have. So, so the notion that somehow there's a hidden message in that constitutional amendment that encompasses a right for a woman to have an abortion is totally absurd. Everyone knew this all along. Any honest person knew this all along. And the fact that the Supreme Court ever ruled that there is such a hidden message there is itself a surprise and a shock and highly zany occurrence. And it was just a ticking time bomb that was waiting to explode. It couldn't last forever. Okay, so that's the first point that I wanted to make. The fact that it lasted 50 years, that's really the shocking thing. Because ultimately it had to go. By the way, there were similar things in the past that that did not stand up to legal scrutiny, and because there was populist will for it, it emerged, it happened, and over time it was rescinded. What comes to mind most is the FDR's agenda. So FDR, a lot of the things that he did in office when he defeated Hoover were unconstitutional, and the courts ruled them as such. Interesting. I'm smirking here because when I was younger and I used to be more liberal, I used to be livid that the courts would strike down FDR's rulings on those things. But now it's plain to see they were in fact unconstitutional, because the Constitution only gives to the federal government certain very specific enumerated powers related to defense, national defense, and certain other things, and of course interstate commerce. But you can't just create the CCC and the Works Progress Administration and all these other things that were just, it's not the job of the federal government to do these things, okay? No matter how well-intentioned the law is, it's just not authorized by the Constitution. And these things were eventually struck down, and they had to adapt them, they had to change them, they had to eliminate them. Some of them lumbered on, and and still exists and still and remained in existence. But for the most part, you know, you can't just make laws that are unconstitutional. So that's the same thing here with Roe v. Wade. It's just, it didn't make any sense. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two, the people who are freaking out, the alarmists, are saying, "Oh, we're taking away the right for a woman to." It's cataclysmic. It's terrible. My body, my choice. How is it possible for someone to control my body? Men are going to be controlling my body. I want to have an abortion, and this is a terrible thing that I'm forced to carry a fetus to term against my will. So there couldn't be this portrayal of uh, of 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 sentiments couldn't be further from the truth. It's just none of this is the case. Okay, so let me break it down here. Number one, most women who are affected by abortion by by the Dobbs decision, meaning that, okay, let me back it up. Most women who want to have abortion in the first place live in liberal states. Okay, how so and why? Very simple. Conservative women don't do abortions, right? They obviously don't approve of it, and that disapproval starts with their own body. Okay, so they either don't have sex, they use protective sex, they get married before they had sex, and and if they do, if something does happen, they take the responsibility upon themselves to, to continue the pregnancy to term. So the women who are inclined, who are clamoring for abortion, most of them live in progressive states. By most of them, let's say I'm just shooting from the hip, I would say 70%. Okay? So that's number one. None of these women, obviously, are in peril of losing their ability, their right to have an abortion, because they live in liberal states that are going to continue to allow them to have abortion, just like before Roe v. Wade was overturned, right? So they're still going to have an abortion. Now, so the first thing I want to note is, just tone it down a notch. Just worry about yourself, worry about your own people, your own family, your own friends, your own state. Don't worry about this phantom woman in a different state. I guess please, just take it easy, okay? You don't know her. This is just a hypothetical person, and she can vote, and she can pressure her own legislature to permit her to have an abortion, or she can move out of that state, okay, if she really needs to. But what I'm trying to say here is just, it's not you. The people who are holding up those signs, they're not at risk of losing their access, their ability to have an abortion. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, if this really is such an important matter to you, and you do happen to live in a conservative state, well, you have options. First of all, you can actually move, right? And I'm pretty sure if you are that progressive and it's that important to you to have an abortion, to be able to have, free sex without having to worry about the consequences, and then if something happens, oh, let me have an abortion, then if that's that important, then you probably have other progressive / liberal values, and I would venture to assume that you would probably find yourself in a different state. Okay, you would have a better life and be more compatible with the cultural values of a different state. So, live and let live. Nobody's trying to force. Remember, we did not invert Roe v. Wade. We didn't say that, oh, thus far, everyone had a right to an abortion. Now we're going to outlaw abortion. Now you cannot have an abortion. No, we're not saying that. We're just simply eliminating that federal constitutional right to an abortion. So, we're not trying to impose, we meaning conservatives, are not trying to impose our will on you. You used to impose your will on us by not permitting any laws banning abortion. So now we're just saying, okay, live and let live. You make your laws, we make our laws. And so those who cherish left-leaning values can still go to your state. We're not trying to control your state. your state can still permit abortion and just move out of our state, move out of, if you are a liberal living in a conservative state and you're concerned about abortion, move to a liberal state. Or you can practice tourism, medical tourism. And people have been practicing this internationally for years now, mostly because the cost of certain medical procedures is so prohibitively high. And so they'll go to Mexico or other, other countries in the South, sometimes Europe, because basically any country is cheaper than the U.S. when it comes to a lot of medical procedures, and realize that interstate medical tourism is much cheaper and easier to implement than across the border medical tourism. So people do this. So stop freaking out. And the last thing I would note is that, think about it. A woman who is inclined to have an abortion, for the most part, she knows about it about a month into her pregnancy. Okay? There's no reasonable way that a woman is having a pregnancy. They don't know that they missed a period. Okay? By a month into their pregnancy, they know that they are pregnant. Okay, for the most part. There's no reasonable way that a woman does not know that she's pregnant after a month. So she has about a month to have an abortion, even in conservative states. Because even conservative states, for the most part, they have heartbeat laws. So you cannot have, so the anti-abortion laws typically in conservative states is that once the fetus has a heartbeat, then the doctor may not perform an abortion. Okay? So you have about 2 months. So you have full 4 weeks from the time you notice that you missed your period and that you're pregnant. So you have at least 4 weeks to undergo abortion legally and morally, even in conservative states. And so yeah. So what's all this freak out about? Why do you ever really need, what is this pressing need to have an abortion once the fetus has a heartbeat? You could have done it earlier, right? So not only are you negligent in getting pregnant in the first place, okay, which, I get it, okay, it happens, mistakes happen, but you're also negligent in waiting until now to have the abortion. So like I said, there's a lot of other choices. For the most part, number one, for the most part, you live in a liberal state to begin with. Number two, you can move or practice medical abortion tourism. And number three, you can just have an abortion before the heartbeat. And so, which brings me to the last point that I want to make in this monologue, which is, what is this really about? So if it's not really about abortion per se, right, as I've just proven to you, okay, this whole Roe v. Wade was silly to begin with. Nobody ever needed it to begin with. It's not needed today. It wasn't needed yesterday. It's not needed tomorrow. The woman who wants to have abortion can still have abortion. And so what is this really all about? And the answer is that this has become a symbol of the culture war. And the reason the progressives are so mad right now is because they are losing a major battle in the culture war. And over the last 2-3 decades, they've been winning. And they just can't stand losing. I shouldn't say they can't stand it. I would say they're not accustomed to losing. Okay, so they're complacent about winning. Certainly on the federal level, on the governmental level, almost all government decrees in the last 20-30 years have been progressive. They've been, like when I grew up, there wasn't bilingual notices. Now, they send everything is bilingual. Every notice that I get from any government agency, they waste a second sheet of paper to write it in Spanish. I'm just giving you one random example of these are liberal ideals, right? Or we have to accommodate people who speak a different language. Okay, never mind that English is the language of America, and for many centuries everyone understood that, but now, oh no, it's changed. And this is done at the federal level, and it's done at the state level. I'm getting letters from the Florida state. This is a relatively conservative state, right? It's run by a conservative governor right now, conservative legislature. And, So, so in the culture war, the the progressives have been winning. The left has been winning, and so this is the first time that they have incurred a major loss. Which brings me to another point. I mean, not another point, but another sub point, I should say, that this has become a symbol of the culture war. It's become a symbol because for decades the conservatives have been fighting over this issue, and the conservatives finally won. And liberals were aware of this, that the conservatives were fighting on the abortion issue, and they use it as a rallying cry. Donate to us because the conservatives might overturn Roe v. Wade, etc. And so this has become, over the years, it has become a symbol of the culture war. And so let me just put one other twist on this, as follows, which is it's actually even larger than the culture wars. The real true difference in this day and age between conservatives and liberals is not even on this, not even on the specifics of the culture war, but it's rather, I think, in my opinion at least, it's something else. It's whether the government should control our lives or we should control our lives. That's really the question. The dichotomy here between conservatives and liberals. The liberals believe, their philosophy in life is that people are stupid. It's never framed that way, but that's really what it is. People are stupid, they're dumb, they don't know what the heck they're doing, and we need elites, we need governments to control them, to tell them what to do, tell them this is safe, this is not safe, you cannot buy a product that's not safe, or you might possibly operate it unsafely. Okay? So the liberals are all, so the liberal agenda is in favor of creating vast government bureaucracies and control mechanisms to prevent stupid people from getting hurt, and to enlarge the government bureaucracy in the process of doing that. Okay. Whereas for conservatives, they are more for personal responsibility. If I get hurt, it's my responsibility, no one else's. We don't need a big government to protect individuals. We don't need a federal big government to protect individuals and to override the state will, the will of the state legislatures, and so on. And so that's really the dichotomy, the dividing line, the battle line between the conservatives and liberals. That's really what it is. And if you think about it, when Roe v. Wade is overturned, that's really what it's about. It's not a question of whether you can have abortion or not. The question is your right to have an abortion protected by the federal government or not? Okay, so again, the liberals, they want some type of federal protection. They crave that. That's just so important to them. For the federal government, we need the elites to have the control. It's not enough. It's not sufficient that the control lies in your state. They want to move up control mechanisms to the highest level available to them, even if it's patently unconstitutional. But they want that at the federal level. That's really the difference between conservatives and liberals. And I would even argue that the reason why they're fighting on this so hard, at least subconsciously, I think, is that the elites in Washington, they know, if not consciously, it's subconscious. They know, they realize that once Roe v. Wade is overturned, who knows what other powers in Washington will be eliminated. Because once people start seeing that, hey, you don't need Washington protection to do things, right? Once women see that, hey, I can still have an abortion without Roe v. Wade being in place, then, what other mechanisms do I not need the government to control? It's scary, and they lose all their power. And so it's really an elite thing. They want it because they want power, and they are so accustomed to thinking along those lines of, hey, I'm this benevolent autocrat here. I'm ruling my people in their in their favor, but they need my rule because they can't do it themselves because they're just too stupid. And so yeah. Um, so that's really what it's all about. The Roe v. Wade is being instigated by the elites. All these people are holding up these play cards. Hey, my body, my choice, and they're freaking out over Dobbs. I think it's not really. I've seen this a lot over the years um, where the oi polloi is just being instigated by the elites. Um, and I think that's what's really happening here because, like I said, the real issue here is the locus of control. Who is controlling things? Is it Washington or your state? And that's the difference between conservatives and liberals. And the conservatives have just scored a major win in that arena, and that's what's so bothering and so disturbing the elites in Washington. Thank you for watching.